Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. We'll talk to an immigration attorney about the latest on President Obama's executive order on immigration, plus an initiative launched targeting housing discrimination in the Valley, and we'll talk about the latest advancements in the fight against Parkinson's disease. Tonight, all this coming up next on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Thanks for joining us. In February, a federal judge in Texas temporarily blocked President Obama's executive action on immigration. United States District Judge Andrew Hansen ruled that the administration had failed to comply with the Administrative Procedure Act, which calls for the White House to afford a longer notification and comment period before taking action. Last week, a federal appeals court announced it will hold an oral argument session this month on the question of whether to stay Judge Hansen's order blocking the president from carrying out the new immigration executive actions. Joining me to talk about the latest is Nancy Lorena Morrow, attorney with the Friendly House organization. Nancy, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So, what the president did is an extension of the existing DACA program, and it's referred to also, he did some other things, DAPA, which has to do with parents. Tell us what was intended, and then we'll talk about what the judge in Texas did.
Okay, so the intention was to expand the current Deferred Action Program for childhood arrivals, which is commonly referred to as DACA. This program is essentially aimed at the dreamers, so that people who have been in the United States for an extended period of time, who can show that they've been continuously present, that they arrived before their 16th birthday, who have not been the subject of removal orders during that time period, and who don't have certain criminal issues in their background, that these individuals be able to be granted deferred action. Deferred action is not a visa status. It's basically a way of allowing somebody to remain in the United States with the assurance from the government that they're not a priority and therefore will not be having action taken against them for their immigration status.
And that's what the original DACA program
Exactly.
did. And the president extended DACA because it removed the limitation on age, right? You had to be below a certain age?
Initially, when it was filed in 2012, the memo required that the person be under the age of 31 at the time that the order was issued. This age restriction was lifted in November's order, and so as long as the person could prove that they were arrived before age 16 and that they qualified with all of the rest, met all of the other requirements, they were also able to apply. And one of the big things is showing that they have been in school or graduated from college, from high school, or have at least a GED.
And then it picked up a whole other group of people who weren't covered in any way by the original DACA order. Tell us about that group. This
is a very interesting part of the executive orders that were announced in November. One of them, it's called the Deferred Action for Parents, and basically the DAPA program is what that's being referred to. The idea was that individuals who are parents of U.S. citizens or permanent residents should have the ability to also stay here and keep the families unified. And so again, people who could show continuous presence from January of 2010 through the time of the announcement, who at the time of the announcement had U.S. born children and who, again, not subject to certain criminal bars, didn't have certain criminal issues.
And this picked up about 5 million more people, which I think is the estimates that people have made.
Exactly. Between the two, it's approximately 5 million.
Hugely controversial, resulted in a lawsuit by a number of states, filed in Texas. They chose the venue. Suggestion is that they purposely sought out a judge who kind of has a history of being some tough rulings on immigration issues. And he did indeed issue a stay. Why did he do that?
The ruling initially basically stated that that the government's action in issuing the executive order did constitute a rule, and therefore should go through a typical rulemaking process, which includes a notice and comment period that would allow opponents to voice their concerns.
So initially, the judge didn't say you can't do this. He said you didn't do it the right way.
Exactly.
And what does it have to do with the existing DACA program?
It doesn't change the fact that the people who already qualified for DACA, they can still keep applying. And under the initial order issued in 2012, anyone who qualified under that order is still eligible to apply right now. So that's something very important. We want to make sure that people know that. However, the other extension of DACA and the new DAPA program are both on hold until this whole process gets figured out.
And as I understand it, there's an outreach effort that's going on right now to tell people exactly what happened and what they can expect in the coming months. And what are you guys doing in that regard?
On April 16th and on April 23rd, my office is going to be hosting 2 more forums. We've had 2 other ones recently that we're going out into communities and basically explaining a little bit more about exactly what the program, the injunction means, and generally the information about how you might qualify when the programs, in my opinion, if it's a when rather than an if, they come into existence.
And as I understand it, even people who are eligible under the existing program, there are a lot of people who have not yet applied. And is that a result of the court rulings? Do you think people are thinking, well, I can't do that anymore, or what do you think is happening?
No, I think that in general, a lot of times people were not necessarily informed. Some people, initially, you had to show that you were actually age 16 at the time of filing, so some people are barely aging into being able to be eligible. There's a lot of different factors that come into play. But ultimately, there are many people who qualified for the initial DACA program who have not applied, and we're encouraging them to do so at this time.
And I think while we were talking, we put up some information on the screen where people can go and get information about when the forms are and so forth. Good luck on the program, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon when we hear a decision from the Fifth Circuit.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Horizonte.
Find out more information about what's on Horizonte, go to azpbs.org and click on the Horizonte tab at the top of the screen. There you can access many features to become a more informed Horizonte viewer. Watch interviews by clicking on the video button or by scrolling down to the bottom of the page for the most recent segments. Learn about more specific topics like arts and culture and immigration. You can also find out what's on Horizonte for the upcoming week. If you would like an RSS feed, a podcast, or you want to buy a video, that's all on our website too. Other features include our collection of website links and a special page for educators. While you're there, show your support for Horizonte with just one click. Discover all that's on Horizonte. Visit azpbs.org, Horizonte today.
Living United for Change in Arizona, Lucha, and Equality Arizona have been awarded a City of Phoenix grant to provide education and outreach around fair housing issues, targeting traditionally underserved populations. Joining me to talk about this project is Tomas E. Robles, Jr., Executive Director for Lucha. Tomas, welcome back to Horizonte. You've been on the show before. We've talked about some of the things that Lucha is doing. When we say underserved populations, in what sense?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Jose, on the program again. So when we talk about underserved communities, we talk about 3 main demographics: the LGBTQ community, limited English speakers, and also the refugee community. And basically, these are communities that have been underreported to HUD in terms of housing discrimination. And so this project, in partnership with Equality Arizona and the City of Phoenix, is to do research, outreach, and education to these groups.
So what have you seen that has indicated that they truly are underserved, that has led your organization, obviously, to believe that there's discrimination going on out there and it's not being addressed?
Well, in many cases, many people aren't aware of their rights and what rights you have both as a tenant, as a renter, and also as a home buyer. And so in many of these cases go unreported because people are either afraid because of their documentation status, or they don't know who to go to or who to report to when it comes to these instances. So many times they don't say anything, or they feel powerless to do so. So we're hoping that by using this program and this grant, we're going to be able to teach these individuals about their rights and what they can do if they identify housing discrimination.
Let's talk a little bit about these populations in the Phoenix area. I think particularly as regards refugees, most people aren't aware that we actually do have a fairly substantial refugee population. Give us a description of what's going on with that group.
Yeah, so definitely. So many people feel that immigration sometimes is only from Mexico, and that's just not the case. We do have a large refugee population from different countries other than Mexico. We have them from Central and South America, and also from countries in Africa as well. And so these populations many times go under the radar. They're still trying to get accustomed to our culture and our standards here in the United States. And so one of the last things they think about are their housing rights. And so we're hoping that by educating that group, they can come out of the shadows a little more and understand that although you're here in a brand new country, you do have some inalienable rights that are given to you regardless.
And what about the LGBTQ community? After the uproar a year ago of over 1062, what's going on in Indiana right now, brings that up. But is there a sense that things have gotten better, worse?
I think things have gotten better, and I think there are instances where we have improved, and there have been policies and laws in place to protect these groups. But more can be done, and in a lot of cases, many of these instances just aren't being reported enough. And so we're hoping that by educating our people, that they can start to see an improvement among the LGBTQ community. And it's also, it's a big thing, especially when you have trans and couples that are trying to rent from homeowners or other apartments, that sometimes it's masked in a way. It's not deliberate discrimination, but there are certain things, for example, oh, you don't want to live here, there are too many kids in the area that make too much noise for your lifestyle. Things like that, quotes or comments like that may make someone feel as if they're not welcome to a particular neighborhood. And so those are instances where they may not notice housing discrimination, but it's happening around them.
And as I understand it from guests we've had on in the past, including yourself, one of the ways to test for this is you may send in a minority couple, and then you send in a white Anglo couple, and see whether you get different responses.
Definitely, and that's one of the plans that we have during this 15-month project, is to not only take in research, but also have these testers that go out and see if renters are giving everyone an opportunity to live in wherever it is that they want to live in the city.
So how are you going to use the grant monies, and exactly what are you going to do in terms of outreach and education?
We're a grassroots organization, so as always, we're going to do grassroots. We're going to we have 2 organizers on the field now that are going to create relationships with LGBTQ communities and organizations, and also refugee and immigrant populations and community organizations. So we'll work there, and also we have informational sessions and workshops where we'll teach people their rights, tell them about how to report housing discrimination. And our first one is going to be at the end of April, on April 25th.
And do you expect that you're actually going to be generating a report that will be turned over to the city, or what's going to come from all the efforts in addition to the outreach?
Definitely the reports, and just taking in as much data as possible to see how often it occurs, if it does, here in the city of Phoenix, and also to identify places where we can target those renters that are practicing housing discrimination, and figure out a way to stop them from doing it, and allow people to really and truly choose where they want to live in this great city.
And as the economy improves, is this more of a problem? Because you have maybe when things aren't going so well and there aren't that many renters available for people to rent apartments to, they're not as picky. And do you think it gets tougher when things get better overall?
I definitely think it gets tougher for people to have more mobility at times. I mean, we've had a lot of anecdotal incidents with our members. Lucha is a dues payment organization, and so our members who receive these services will tell us about instances where they wanted to look at a home in a particular neighborhood, and they've actually been shied away from the realtor, or if they've seen an apartment complex in a nicer part of the valley, and because of the economy is improving, they have more money to use on housing, and they've been turned away, or not called back. And so those are instances where the economic mobility is helping people afford better housing situations, but the opportunities to live in those areas are sometimes diminished by who's essentially the gatekeeper to those.
Well, we look forward to hearing from you in 15 months
Yes.
about what you found out, and thanks for joining us on Horizonte to
Thank
talk
you for
about it.
having me. Appreciate it.
Want to be more connected? Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Watch us online.
April is Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. 1.5 million people in the U.S. have the disease. Here to talk about the latest news in Parkinson's disease is Darylyn O'Donnell, Recreation Therapy Coordinator for the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center, and Dr. Abraham Lieberman, Medical Director for the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center. Thank you both for joining us this evening. We've got a couple of pictures that we want to put on the screen just of the facility at the Barrow Institute. One of them has the Fight Night name up there, and the other, of course, the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center. Dr. Lieberman, you have a fascinating story to tell about how this all got started, and it was because of your relationship with Muhammad Ali, and you convinced him to do it.
Well, that was part of it. I mean, it was also Jimmy Walker, but I'd known Muhammad since about 1984, 85. I had tried to get him interested in becoming a spokesperson for Parkinson's disease, because I think if he would lend his name to the disorder, we could create a great deal of awareness and raise money to ultimately get rid of this disorder. And Muhammad was very resistant. He said, you know, I don't want to be a poster child for Parkinson's.
And he was diagnosed when, 1980?
84, 85. He said, I don't want to be a poster child for Parkinson's disease. And I was pretty persistent. Finally, he and his wife, Lonnie, invited me to their home in Berrien Springs, Michigan. And I spent the day with Muhammad trying to convince him to become a spokesperson for Parkinson's disease. And I finally, I guess I must have worn him down, because he said, look, he said, why don't you write me a letter? Write me a letter and tell me why I should get involved with Parkinson's disease.
And you ended up writing a letter,
Well,
but actually a poem.
Well, I thought, you know, what am I going to say in a letter, you know, to Muhammad Ali? And, you know, he must get all sorts of letters. And then the thought occurred to me that Muhammad's a poet.
Yeah.
So
Not
I'll
like
write
a
a poem.
butterfly, sting like a bee.
So I'll write a poem. Now, the fact that I'm not a poet and I've never written a poem didn't deter me, because it was a great idea that came to me in the middle of the night. So I sat down and I wrote a poem. And basically it outlined some of the fears that I thought Muhammad had. And one of them was the fear of growing old, because Parkinson's is really a disease of older people, and Muhammad Ali stands for everything, youthful, vitality. And he got the poem, and about an hour later I got a phone call and said, you know, I'll do it. So he became a spokesperson. Celebrity Fight Night started with an idea from Jimmy Walker, who's a local philanthropist. And Jimmy had put on mock boxing matches to raise money for fighters who were down on their luck. And he'd been modestly successful. He ran into Muhammad Ali at the meeting, at a dinner, and the idea struck him that if he could get Muhammad to lend his name, the event could really take off. So he spoke to Muhammad, and Muhammad and Lonnie said, well, we have a friend in Phoenix, Abe Lieberman, and why don't you talk to him? And if he's agreeable, we'll do it. So Jimmy called me. I didn't know Jimmy, and I went down, I met him, and I said, well, you know, if some of the money will come to Barrow, I'll do it. And that was the origin of the current Celebrity Fight Night.
So how did Muhammad Ali come to lend his name to the center?
Well, I've taken care of Muhammad for a long time. Muhammad, Celebrity Fight Night grew, generated, you know, funds, and the name of Muhammad Ali, you know, was almost integrally involved with Parkinson's disease. And I thought if Muhammad would lend his name to the center, I mean, Barrow's got an excellent reputation, but Muhammad Ali's unique name for a unique disease, disorder. So I asked Muhammad and Lonnie. There's only one other. There's a Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville. That's really a museum of Muhammad Ali,
And that's where he's from.
That's where he's from. And so this was, he lent his name because he lives in Phoenix, and he lent his name to the center. So we were authorized to use the name Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center.
And Darylyn, as I understand it, one of the things that really distinguishes the center from other institutes that have devoted themselves to dealing with this horrible disease is that it's not so much research focused as it is focused on telling people how to deal with the disease. I mean, there's surgeries and everything else, but tell us about the kinds of things that you do.
Oh, we at the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center at Barrow have the largest outreach program, most extensive outreach program in the country. Thank you to funding from Celebrity Fight Night and other donors. We're totally donor based.
And we got a few pictures of the kinds of things you're doing that we're
Right.
going to run as you're talking.
So we offer education because it's real important. If you have this disease, you're going to have it till there is a cure. So you need to know how to manage that disease, and you can't manage it if you don't know enough about it to have those meaningful, engaged conversations with your physician that not only talks about your treatment, but also your personal preferences. And most people are seeking other things besides medication. So we provide education, we provide an extensive amount of education, not only for people with Parkinson's, but also their caregivers. We've even gone in and trained paid professional caregivers at extended care facilities in Parkinson's disease as well. We have a separate, we also have lots of exercise, because exercise is a big research topic in Parkinson's as well. We think that the neuroprotective benefits derived from exercise can actually slow disease progression.
And on the education front, as I understand it, you've got a number of activities coming up in the next few weeks, including one that invokes the name of Raul Izaguirre, who's been a guest on our show and who actually suffers from Parkinson's.
Yes, we have our annual Hispanic. We have probably the largest Hispanic outreach program as well. And that program will be having its annual educational conference on Saturday, April 25th, and it will be at the Barrow. And we have the ability to webcast, and we will be webcasting not only to anybody so that you can watch it from wherever you have a computer, but also to sites in Mexico City, Honduras, and Colombia as well. So it's got a nice extensive reach to really arm people with the knowledge that they need to have to best manage their disease for a quality of life.
I should point out that also we're a National Parkinson Foundation Center of Excellence. So there are only a few centers in the United States that have been so designated. And this gives us the National Parkinson's Foundation partially funds the Hispanic Outreach Program, provides us with educational materials and videos, and has been a real resource for us and our patients.
And as I understand it, you were one of, only about 5 centers in the country that have the size and scope of outreach that
well,
you
we
do?
have not the size and scope of outreach, but the patient population. We see over 1,000 new patients with Parkinson's a year. You know, not new to the disease, but new to us. And we have about 10,000 patient visits a year. So it's a huge center. We're either first or second in the country in the number of DBS surgeries. We do a lot of clinical trials for Parkinson's disease. But basically, we see a large number of patients with Parkinson's disease. And with this large number, we are able to say, you know, at the end of the person says, well, can you tell us more? And I said, well, just walk right across the hall and there's the outreach program. And they'll give you tons of information.
And you and I were talking about this before we came on the air. It's one thing to get the diagnosis, but what's been lacking, and the thing that you guys provide is okay, so what now?
That's right. And you know, you picture yourself, you come in, you have a little tremor, you've not been worried, you know, someone's, you know, your family's been after you to get it seen. You think, well, it's a little tremor, how bad can it be? And then you go into the doctor and he says, you know, nowadays doctors are very busy. They don't have much time for patients. They're, you know, constantly on the computer and doing things. And the doctor says, oh yeah, you got Parkinson's disease. And you say, well, what does that mean? Oh, well, here are some books, read about it and come back in about 3 months and we'll talk to you. Well, the patient is hungry.
And that's what Darylyn provides.
And that's
Right.
what she feels.
And we're almost out of time. Where can people go to get more information about the services that you all offer?
They can certainly go to our website, which is www.maprc.com, or they can call us at 602-406-4931. And we're there for everybody, regardless of where you receive your care.
You know, it's a tough issue, and we thank you both very much for joining us on Horizonte to talk about it.
Well, thank you
Our
very much for
pleasure.
having us.
That is our show for tonight. From all of us here at 8 in Horizonte, thank you for watching. I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good evening.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.